Hi there, Jay Eaker here at the Network Life Center in Louisville, Colorado. And today I kind of want to talk about a sensitive subject, which is the subject of depression. And I've worked with a lot of people over the years who've dealt with depression. And I kind of do something that's a little unique here at the Network Life Center. And so if you've been here or you've seen my videos, you know that. And so my perspective on depression is going to be a little unique, but hopefully you'll find it useful. Um, every person that I've ever worked with who's dealt with depression has had a similar posture, and that always looks something like this, where the front of the body is being closed off, where there's tension being held here behind the heart, looks something like that. And the reason that there's a correlation is because there's a direct relationship between our emotional state and our posture, the way we're holding ourselves. You know, if you see someone at the grocery store who looks like this, or you see someone in their car who looks like this, or you see someone who looks like that, you kind of have a sense of what they're feeling based on how they're holding themselves. So there's a direct relationship there. And unfortunately, that's not something that someone can just necessarily change, because it's possible that their body's been that way for a long time, because this tends to start when we're in the womb, when we're just young kids, when we're babies. So it's not something, so the bones, the joints, the ligaments have all sort of formed in a certain shape. And so it's not something that we can just instantly change. But part of what's happening there is that as we're doing this, energy is being redirected down. So ideally, we'd like that to have where energy can come up through our spine and be able to come through our heart and flow up and circulate that way. But part of what happens as our postures like this, energy is getting redirected back down, and so there's only certain emotions that we can, certain range and certain emotions that we can have access to. And unfortunately, when our posture is like this, what's happening is the energy is being directed down, and we kind of, our nose is getting stuck in the dirt, pushed in the dirt, sort of. And a lot of what we're being drawn towards is despondency, dejection, inadequacy, hopelessness, feelings like that. And so there's a gravity to that. We're constantly being pulled down there. Our posture is constantly supporting it. And actually, it's when we start to resist that. I can understand why people would resist that. Everyone would, but we start to put the brakes on, and it's when we put the brakes on that it starts to cause suffering. One option, as I talk about in my videos, is to go towards the pain. That's always an option to find the solution. And so if we actually let ourselves go into that dejection, the despondency, the inadequacy, the hopelessness, eventually we would have a complete experience of the emotions, the sensations, and the thoughts that are associated with that depression, those feelings, and we would be released from that sense of self that's sort of tied up in that, and the energy would start to rise again. There's an example of someone who's done that. This Eckhart Tolle. He's a spiritual teacher and author. He's written this book here, A New Earth, and also wrote The Power of Now. You may have seen him on Oprah. But he's an author, spiritual teacher, and his story is kind of that he was being sucked down into the depths of this depression, and he ended up having a complete experience of the emotions, sensations, feelings, thoughts that go along with that, and he was completely liberated, you might say. Another part of this book is where he talks about the pain body. It's kind of that, like I mentioned, that sense. There's a sense of self. There's a part of us that actually is getting fed by those emotions and sensations, and actually needs that to keep living. And he talks about that in this book. So if you're dealing with depression, that would be a really good book to check out. And what would happen if we had a complete experience of the sensations and emotions that go along with that depressive sense of self would be eventually all the energy that's bound up in that sense of self would be released, and that energy would start to rise up the spine. And but then we would run into another problem, because as that energy rises up the spine, it would wash into this tension, this energy that's being sequestered behind the heart. And when that happens, we'd be asked to digest, to feel through that energy that's being sequestered there, and that would look like shame and guilt and rage and grief. And so, when we're dealing with depression, we're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. We're stuck between despondency and dejection and shame and grief and rage, etc. And I can see why medication is pretty popular because what medication does is it takes the edge off of all of those intense emotions, and allow it's a maybe good short-term strategy because it allows people to maybe get up and sort of engage with their life. And I would say that it's not a very good long-term strategy for a few reasons. First of all, our nervous system would end up building a tolerance to those medications eventually, and then we'd need more medication to accomplish have the same effect. And also, emotions kind of exist on a continuum, and they're all connected together. So if we limit the range of what we can feel on the negative end of things, then it also limits the range of what we can feel on the positive end of things. So it decreases our ability to really feel joy or satisfaction or love, for that matter. And the other thing is that emotion is really kind of like the spice of life. It's our soul uses emotion to sort of direct us, to tell us it's important that we can feel what lights us up, and that tells us which direction to go in life. And so, if that emotion's not there, we could be sort of lost and without direction, and life can be not very satisfying if that emotion's not there. So the truth is if we want to heal depression, we're going to have to feel through that stuff. We're going to have to coax life force energy up through there and start to digest the grief, the shame, the guilt, the rage. And that can be done in a gentle way that involves ease. If we can draw your nervous system out of defense, we can start to coax life force energy up through there, and in such a way that you can sort of integrate that into your life. And as that happens, as that energy from around the heart is unpacked, and you start to have an experience and give yourself permission to feel the feelings that are in there, the posture also changes as well. And so it creates this permanent change happens where energy is able to run through there. It doesn't have the posture supporting it anymore, and definitely change your life. So if you found this interesting or useful, please like it or share it, pass it along to someone who might be dealing with depression. And I look forward to serving you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.